gonna do Zera, right? We're doing Yud Dalet. So he brings a great thing where we have a Mesurah that it says ve'atem. Oh no, I'm sorry, atem, right? 4 times in the Torah. First one is in Al Parasha. Atem lechu kehu lachem teven. Go collect teven, right? Paro says that you guys go take teven. Another time, Hashem tells Bnei Israel, Atem reitem asher asiti leMitzrayim. You saw what I did in Mitzrayim with the Makot. And then in Nitzavim it says Atem Nitzavim Hayom, right? You are standing in front of me. And in Yeshaya it says Atem Edai. You are my witnesses. And he says this, so he explains that there's a connection between each one of these 4 Pesukim. How are you? So we said that there's a connection between the four times it says Atem, right? And what are we saying? We're saying that if we don't, because if it doesn't say the first Pasuk, you wouldn't be able to say the second. And if it didn't have the second, you wouldn't be able to say the third. If you didn't have the third, you wouldn't be able to say the fourth. And we're going to explain what that means. Okay, so you see that one answers the other. So let's go through it. The first one we said, Atem Reitem, you will see. Right? The Rambam in Hilchot Teshuvah explains that the reason why the Mitzrayim suffered so much, how could it be? Hashem gave the Gezerah, She'evud, Ve'inu Otam. So that's their job. Their job is to make them suffer. So why were the Mitzrayim suffering? What do you want from them? And we have to explain the reason why they got the Makot was not because of the She'evud, but because of the brazenness that Paro had when Moshe first came to him and said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu demands you let Bnei Israel go. And he says that what does he do? He says, Atem, right? The first word, Atem, the Pasuk says, Lechu kehu lachem teven. Go collect your own straw that you'll find. So it seems to be that Paro was the first one to start this off. Right? And then once it says that he was brazen, right? Once it said that he was brazen, then the Pasuk goes and says, Atem reitem asher asiti leMitzrayim. You saw what I did in Mitzrayim. Which means what? You saw the makot that I brought on them. And even though you guys also did Avodah Zarah, right? And technically you're also worthy of not being, you're worthy of not being spared. Meaning if the calamity comes, you don't have the zechut to be protected. But because you see now that because why did you do Avodah Zarah? You did it because of the galut that you were in. And you were crazy. You didn't know what was going on. You're not thinking straight. So because of that, I was mochel you. Hashem is telling Bnei Israel, I'm mochel you. Why? Because you didn't do it on purpose. You didn't do it to anger me. So what do you have to say from this pasuk, Atem Neitem, when Hashem tells Bnei Israel for the first time, you see what I did to the Goyim in Mitzrayim, to the Mitzrayim in Mitzrayim, that there's a separation between somebody that sins be'ones and shogeg versus someone that sins on purpose. Right? So that's a big deal. To know that there's a difference between someone that does something on purpose versus something that someone does by accident. And now that you see that there's this...
Or rebelliousness or on purpose out of spite.
Yeah, out of anger, out of just spite. Right? So now that you know there's this separation, now you could say the Pasuk, Atem Nitzavim, you're standing in front of me, you're standing before me. Why? Because what's the whole thing is, that parasha is all about how many, the Berachot and the Kelalot. The Berachot and the Kelalot. Right, and remember what Rashi says when they heard the nitzav, when they heard all the whatever, the kelalot, horiku penehem, right? They all became white, and they said, "Who can handle all this?" Right. Therefore, the pasuk comes and says, "Atem nitzavim." No, you're here and you're here to stay. Don't worry. You're staying. Nitzavim means standing up. So even though you hear all the curses, you're gonna say, "Atem nitzavim hayom." You're standing here today. You're good. But Zera Shimshon asked a very good question. Well, how is that a re'ayah? Maybe that's a re'ayah for what was before. But what do you mean? They didn't go into this covenant of the blessings and the curses. But now maybe the game starts and maybe I won't be able to handle it. Maybe we won't. So what do we answer? We need the pasuk that we said earlier. Remember, it goes in order. Why? Now that we said that there's a difference between someone that does something by accident versus desiring to mess, right? Mezid and shogeg. Right? Av berit halot lo. So he's explained that even this berit of the onesh, right, will only happen for someone who is doing it on purpose, just like it happened to the Mitzrayim. So you see the difference between Mitzrayim and Bnei Israel, that we were both in the same place and both did the same thing, Avodah Zarah, but one did it by mezid and one did not. Okay, Atem nitzivim hayom kulechem. Right? I should to tell you what, that we know that we know, Hashem saying, I know that your ratzon, your real desire is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu the right way. Everyone wants to do the right thing. Nobody wants to do the wrong thing. Right? But the punishment is going to be for someone who dafka wants to go out of his way and to rebel against God. Right? Why? Because like the pasuk says, "Pen yesh lachem," it says, "Well, leman sefot harava et atzema." It says about being a drunken who's thirsty, and as she says that a person that's being drunk is considered a shogeg, because when a guy's drunk, he doesn't know what he's doing. And by the way, you should know that's the halacha. If a person is drunk, and you need to know this halacha on Purim, if you're drunk on Purim, you cannot pray.
No, I don't. I don't need to know.
I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you. A person that's drunk is considered an anus. Anus. Right? Not the guy that knows he has to pray and then gets drunk. That doesn't count. No, it's a guy that prays, that gets drunk, and now realizes, oh, I got to pray. That's what it's saying. Right? Versus someone who's thirsty, as she says, is someone who's mezid, he's doing it on purpose. So you see from the pasuk that there's a separation between someone who does something by accident versus on purpose. And now that we got the clarity from the pasuk of Paro, right? That Hashem tells Bnei Yisrael, you see the difference. Now we can use the next one. Atem nitzavim, you're standing up. Why? To show you that we can handle that there's a separate, that only if you do it on the curse is only going to come on a person who does it on purpose. Okay, and now that we have this concept, now we get to the last pasuk that says Atem Eidai, you are my witnesses. Because without this, it's very hard to say how could Bnei Yisrael, who considered as children, be able to testify. And even if we do testify, what value is that to HaKadosh Baruch Hu if he's our father? Because relatives cannot testify for each other. But now after you say that, and even more than that, you say where it says Atem Nitzavim, where you're standing here before, right? What does it say? That we know that Moshe forced us to accept this covenant. He forced us, which means if we didn't force us, there's room to say that we wouldn't be obligated. We wouldn't be obligated. So since that he forced us, that means that we wouldn't be obligated. But even if we weren't obligated, if we're his children, we still have the commandment to honor the father. So even if he didn't command us, even if he didn't push us to do it, we would still be forced to. So again, the question is on the pasuk in Yeshaya, Atem Edai, how is it possible that you could be that we could testify, and how could that help God? So what do you have to say? That we're not called children because of blood. It's not like that's not the type of children that we're talking here. We're talking lashon hiba, right? It says a whole bunch of times in Mishle, right? Do this, my son. Aseh zot efo beni, my son, my honey, right? Like we call our wives, beni im avarti lereecha, right? My son, if you're going to be a guarantor for your friend. All these types of examples. Another one, beni bechor Israel, beni my firstborn. Right? It's even though that even though we don't have the deen of being a firstborn for the Mishkan like they were supposed to have, right? Even though atem nitzavim. Wait, what does that mean? Hold on. They didn't
have the legal status of a firstborn to perform service in the Mishkan as all the actual firstborns did at that time.
Okay, English. What does that mean in English?
Meaning they didn't technically have the right to perform the service in the Mishkan, being a true firstborn as the actual firstborns did at that time, but they still were able to do it.
They were able to do what? The work of Mitzrayim? The work of the Mishkan?
No, the work in the Mishkan, even though
even though you didn't have the deen of like the status of a firstborn that works in that Mishkan, like the Bechorot did at that time, because it was only taken away later, right? Lachen v'lachen ahad shamar atem nitzavim. So after you say the word atem nitzavim, now you can say atem edai, right? My word to show you that it's not a real. It's not a real. It's not like the benai when he calls us benai. It's not like it's because we're blood. It's because he loves us.
Right.
So because he loves us, you gotta have someone who loves you be your witness, but you can't have somebody who's your blood relative. He can't testify. Right now, the fact is, we said that each pasuk is covering the first. Right. So really, all this comes from what Paro, right? To show you that Paro got punished because what he did? He did something with audacity. He did something with brazenness. Because of that, he got punished, and we who did not do something in brazenness, were able to,
Yeah.
we did not get punished. We also know in Nitzavim that when Hashem says all these crazy punishments that are going to happen, He's explaining that it's only going to happen to someone that does it by accident, not by someone that does it on purpose. And then we say, Atem Edai, you are my witness. How could you be a witness if you consider my son? To show you, it's not that type of son. It's a ton of, it's a son. It's a in term of endearment. Okay, it's not like a blood relative, and therefore each one ties into the other. And then we ended by saying, "Be yotam deresh pasuk yirmoz." Now the fact that the beginning of the pasuk hints shekol zehu lefi hasevra rishona. The truth is, yesh letaretz kushot atem edai. You could even explain. You could answer the question of atem edai in a different way, like we do in Parashat Shoftim, that explaining that you're my witnesses is not meaning not it's not that we should actually testify to Hashem or about Hashem, but that your unwavering faith, which Hashem right in Hashem, will counteract the forces of impurity that conceal Hakadosh Baruch Hu in this world, which is true. When you have faith in Hakadosh Baruch Hu, when you show the people that you have faith, when this thing happened yesterday, I told my partner, I told them, in business you learn that there's ups and downs, and I go, do you agree? He goes, yes, and he's like, go. I go, do you also agree that everything's from God? I go, I know we don't talk about it a lot, but do you know it's true? He goes, yes. Like, okay, just letting you know we lost an account. Like, I told him, well, and he goes, oh, like that, but let that be all the goyim. Let that be the fact to show the world that this is that we don't
Right.
curse and scream and go crazy because we lost something. We don't do that. No, it's from God,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's the edut that's talking over here, right? And the Avad also answers the question that we asked originally. Va'avadun ve'inu otam. Where the pasuk says that you have to be all over. You have to be all over the what's it called, right? That Hashem tells that they're going to subjugate you. It's not harsh subjugation. It's avdut kal. You be the janitors, but you get paid or something. They're not gonna put your baby head into the walls, right?
Right.
But because ulam al Yisrael, because they went a little crazier, therefore that's why they got punished. And even on the kushav atem nitzavim, right? You could say that they didn't go into Brit Allah, right? Because Atem Nitzavim is when they went into the extra covenant of all the blessing of the curses. And he says, "V'kivat tetzu bazeh mefarshim." Who's the mefaresh he's talking about here? The Ora Hayim, which is beautiful because they were contemporaries, they were friends. Zera Shimshon Ora Hayim were friends, which is delicious,
Right.
right? And we said, what did he say? He said, the Ora Hayim said that the special relationship that Bnei Yisrael has, because of the special relationship that Hashem has with Bnei Yisrael, He gives us the lesser punishment, right? And they're going to resemble the harsh punishments that are written. But you shouldn't have to fear that you're actually going to do these crazy things because it's not exactly what He's looking. He's not looking to do. He's just looking to scare you, and He'll give you those punishments, but in a much lesser way. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen. Ve'amen.